The US is gonna have a new national holiday now, with the Senate unanimously passing a bill Tuesday. Unanimous, they don't often do that. Just yesterday, that would make Juneteenth or June 19th a federal holiday commemorating the end of slavery in the United States. It commemorates specifically when the last enslaved African Americans learned that they were free. Confederate soldiers surrendered in April of 1865, but word didn't actually reach the last enslaved black people until June 19th, when Union soldiers brought the news of freedom to Galveston, Texas. I know I probably say this like literally every time we talk about that fact, about the origin of it, but isn't it amazing that like months of additional slavery, the news hasn't gotten here yet. Is that amazing? It's like when you read about how, oh, sorry, JR, what were you gonna say?
It's fine. Just think about the people who died in those couple months, who were continually abused, separated, whatever, raped, maimed, killed, all that stuff that happened on a regular basis, the things that continue to happen even though they were technically free,
Yeah, and of course, even on that day, it's not like, oh, good, I'm gonna go to my apartment then. Like, obviously it took like 140 years and counting to deal with the fallout of all of that. But yeah, that is fairly amazing. Now, it becoming a new national holiday is fairly significant. It becomes only the 12th federal holiday. It's expected to easily pass the House. I wouldn't take anything for granted, but it seems like this one should be a layup, which would then send it to President Joe Biden for his signature. And I kind of think he's gonna sign it. So that is good. We've got a statement from Senator Ed Markey, one of the, again, unanimous senators who voted for it, saying, we have a long road towards national justice in the United States, and we cannot get there without acknowledging our nation's original sin of slavery. It is long past time to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, which it will now be. So that is good. The fact that it was unanimous, even better. I mean, even the hate crimes legislation from earlier this year, they couldn't quite get that with Josh Hawley being the one to vote against. So JR, what do you think about this?
It's surprising, I gotta be honest. That it's been talked about before as something to actually celebrate and recognize as something that was changed in the country. But the problem, I think, the reason why it's been so delayed is because with this recognition comes a conversation of what happened. You can't say, oh, we ended something without saying what something is. And we have a very long history of not talking about what it is, because it was horrible and it continues to not be addressed. It continues to not be acknowledged as the legacy that it continued on to hold on this country to this day. To this day, which we'll talk about the critical race theory later, won't we?
Oh, we will.
So the opposition for things like the teachings of it go hand in hand with recognizing what it is. It just makes sense, Look, we recognize the 4th of July, we recognize all this, the revolutionary stuff. We recognize that with so much pride, with fireworks and celebrations and the day off and drinking and beers and barbecues and all that. And then it's a celebration of who we are. We don't want to celebrate this because it shows who we are and who we were and our legacy of that. And so it's about time. And honestly, you should be proud of it. So the people who say things like, hey, if we talk about this, it's telling Americans we suck. You're kind of joining in, you're kind of indicting yourself to say that you suck. Nobody said you suck. We said what we used to do in this country sucks and we needed to fix it. So anyway, the recognition of it is long gone, and people who don't like it are gonna stick their heads up and raise their hand and show, hey, I'm the POS that doesn't like this.
Yeah, well, and we're gonna have some of those for you, but thankfully, at least in the Senate, like, so someone on Twitch just said the reason it was unanimous is because it's just a gesture, it's not actual policy, which I get it, it's a fine point. That said, Republicans have long stood even against these sorts of gestures. Like the path for Martin Luther King Jr. to become a holiday. Like, what was that like for decades because of Republicans? So this is actually better by comparison. But that said, I agree. It shouldn't just be a day to like have a hot dog or whatever. It has to be substantive. Like you said, it's supposed to be a celebration of who we actually are. And we're talking about it now, and we've got a little bit more for you. But that said, we can only talk so much But you know where you can get a bunch more that recognizes all of this? That's on our Juneteenth special happening on Friday, June 18th. It's gonna be our 3rd annual Juneteenth special. The first hour hosted by the amazing Ben Dixon. Jayar Jackson is actually gonna be hosting the 2nd hour, and there's gonna be an amazing suite of guests. A ton of awesome people, Dr. Rashada Ritchie, Jason Carr, Charles Coleman, Wazi Lambre, Wisdom Cole. You've got academics, you've got communicators, you've got activists. We're gonna be talking about voter outreach, diversity in politics, representation, reparations, a number of different issues. This is 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time, Friday, June 18th. On Juneteenth, which will now be a federal holiday. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.